Your life isn't over. Your career's not over. You're not done. You're not done. You have two choices: say yes or to say no. So you could either give up and do something else, or you could tough through it. Your life is only over when you're 6 feet underground. No matter what age you are, no matter where you are in life, no matter what you're doing, your career is never over. You're never done working. You're never done. Your responsibilities, they may shift, they evolve, but you're nearly never done. See, in the first years of your working career, meaning from my perspective, in your early years between the age of, I don't know, we'll just pretend 14 and 22, you're essentially just trying to develop what your life is going to look like. You're building the foundation of what your life is. Whatever skills you learn between the ages of 14 and 22 are the skills that you're going to carry with you throughout the rest of your life. Now, with that being said, skills can be learned at any time. Temperament, however, how we act as we get older, there's not a lot we can do about that. Our mental degradation, our enthusiasm for life, those things change. And when we have families, when we have kids, it changes us even more. So there are some important things that we need to talk about. And I run into this where job seekers say that they're 23, their life is over, or they're 25 and their life is over, or even they're 32 and their life is over. Your life isn't over. Your career's not over. You're not done. You're not done. You have two choices. Your choices in life, no matter what the situation is to say yes or to say no. So you could either give up and do something else, or you could tough through it, your situation. When I was in my early 30s, I was about 32, 33, I needed to change careers. I was struggling. I couldn't make over $40,000 a year. Actually, the best job up to that point, I had a job making $39,000. And I couldn't find anything that was good. I had lots of kids. I struggled to pay the bills. I mean, it was kind of ridiculous, to be honest with you. And it kind of was a situation to where I had to make a choice. I had to make a choice. Am I going to continue to sit around and continue to try to make something of my life based off of what I had built for myself in the prior 30-something years? Or am I going to do something different? Now, when I was 32, I kind of thought, well, maybe I should go be a software developer. I thought that. I really did. I think I was 32, maybe 33. But you know what? I had that self-doubt that sunk in. And I told myself, dude, you're way too old for that crap. Nope. No. We're not going to do that. We're not going to start over again. We're going to utilize what we have already. Now, there certainly is something to be said about utilizing the skills and experience you already have. Once you reach a certain age, you need to be thinking about that. You need to be taking that route. But that's not what we're talking about here. At age of 32, you still have plenty of life, plenty of working life. You still have lots of opportunities. And so I didn't really do anything. I had a job. I didn't make over 40,000 still. And at about age 35, I came back around. I had gone back around full circle. I had worked and had nothing to show for it. And when I was 35, I was once again faced with the idea of, what should I do differently? What should I do? And I thought about it, and I sat, and I got a piece of paper out, and I wrote out the things I liked to do, the things I didn't want to do. Meaning I didn't want to work with people. I didn't want to be customer facing, I guess is probably a better way to put it. And I wanted to build things. And I just wanted to work by myself. I wanted to work independently. And the more I explored this option, and the more I wrote down and the more I evaluated what I had written down, the more I realized My career choice was software developer. And then I had that moment. I had that moment where I said, I don't care what my brain is telling me, I'm going to do this. I don't care what it takes. I don't care what I have to do. I'm going to do this. And I had a lot of other projects going on. None of them were making money, of course. And I said, they're gone. I didn't have a job. I had a couple different projects. I had some things where I was trying. There were a couple startups that I was trying to help out. I gave them all up. I pulled open the internet. I did some Google searches. I started to learn what HTML was and CSS. I downloaded a free version of Visual Studio and went through their training on C# coding. And I said, yeah, this is what I have to do. Night after night, I went through these different exercises online, through YouTube, through other resources, watching videos, trying to understand, trying to learn how to code. And I said, part of this plan to get where I want to get to, it'd be really valuable if I had some sort of education. But I'm not going to do that 4-year crap like I had already done. I had already gone that route twice, and that route wasn't going to work this time. But I started looking, and I found that there was a college, a private college, that provided a 2-year degree, a 2-year software development degree. I thought, okay, a 2 years associate could actually work. And just so you want to know, the company doesn't exist anymore, but it was ITT. I don't know if you remember them. Look it up. So I looked, and sure enough, they had an opportunity. They had a 2-year degree, and they were about to start a new session. And I said, okay, but I have to figure out how to pay for that. I'm sure in heck not going to do student loans again. So I poked around a little bit in the area, and I looked for an IT type job. I thought maybe if I got a job working with servers or with software or whatever the heck I could find, I would take it and I would love on it and use the money from that job to pay for my new education, to pay for that associate's. It was only going to take me a year to finish, but I was going to have to pay for it during that time. And sure enough, I found a job. I found a job with a managed service company. Now, if you don't know about managed service companies, essentially it's like contracting. You are a contractor, but you get hired by the contracting company, but you don't ever have to interview with the client company. So they're actually quite beneficial. They're great for getting a start, especially in IT. Anyway, so I got a job working in IT asset management. So I was working with servers, laptops, desktops, monitors, that sort of thing. And it put me in the IT department. I wasn't really doing any IT, but I got to put IT in my title on my resume. And I thought, well, this job isn't bad. It pays, I think it was $17 an hour. I'm just going to do that. Whatever. It didn't really matter to me. All that mattered is it put me in the area so I could work and then go to classes in the evening. And that's what I did. Until one day, when we were all there, the college gathered all the students up and we all pooled into one room. Each of our students, many of which were younger people, some were military veterans. We had a big assembly of students of ITT, and we stood shoulder to shoulder, unsure about what they were going to tell us. We all just kind of looked at each other and waited. And that's when we found out the news. We found out ITT was closing, and that term was going to be the last term they were going to offer. They were never going to be open again. And they apologized. They said, we're sorry. Some of you were about to finish your programs. We said we would be able to finish the programs, but now we're not going to be able to. We're not going to have enough money. We're closing the doors. That's the end of it. Now, for me, I was 1 term away from getting my associates. 1 term. Meaning, we're talking like a month and a half, 2 months. I don't remember how long your terms were, maybe 3 months. I was not long. I had already gone through all the database classes. I had already gone through the software classes. I'd continued to work on my own, figuring out how to build websites, how to build Angular applications. I was doing all kinds of different things so that I could learn skills, so that I could prepare myself. And in that moment, I realized my time at ITT was done. It was over. I went to work the next day. The job that I had commuted to an hour away. And I commuted there, and I started thinking about it. And I was like, why am I still working here? I am working here to pay for schooling that I no longer have. And I thought, I got to do something different. And at that moment, I had two choices. You could say yes, or you could say no. You're either going to give up, or you're going to say, screw it, I'm going to do it anyway. Later that week, I started applying for jobs for entry-level software development positions. You have all seen it. If you've looked for an IT software developer position, you've all seen it, where they'll have some posting. Usually this will be, on dice.com or wherever it is. They'll say 0 to 2 years of experience. You're like, oh, thank you. It says 0. It has 0. And you apply for it, and then you sit there and you go, they're going to give me a call. I know they will. And you sit there. Now, by that time, I was already kind of old, so I already learned that you never really sit and wait. So I applied for more jobs and more jobs. There were career fairs. There was a technology career fair at the university I'd graduated with. I went and I talked to every company there that had somebody who had a software position. I talked to as many people as I could and got as much information as I could. And I had recruiters calling me. Now, I'm not going to mention names, but there was a company that had tons of postings that they were looking for software. They didn't really. Okay, turns out all they were doing was fishing for applicants. I drove an hour away on multiple occasions and sat down with a recruiter that they were just trying to get to know me and know more about my situation. And, 5 minutes into it, they were kind of like, oh, okay, well, we'll let you know if we find something. Yeah, sure you will. Sure you will. I just drove down here an hour, and I got to drive another hour back just so you could find out that I don't know jack squat enough and I have no value to you. Really? And so I would take those opportunities, and I would drive to different staffing agencies and stop by and hand people my resume. On several occasions, I would just cold walk into a building, a small business that did software, and I said, hey, here's my resume. In one occasion, they actually let me meet with the president of their company. And they said, well, we actually really like you, but unfortunately, you're pretty new. Can you come back in a couple of years? I probably should have, but I never did actually go back in a couple of years. I spent so much money driving, trying to find somebody who would be interested, who would hire me as an entry-level software developer with no college degree. I shouldn't say that. With no IT college degree. I have a business admin degree, right? And so I did that. I went from one place to another, and I did this. And then one day, there was a staffing agency. Again, I won't name names. I walked in. There were lots of people partying in the back room. And in the front, in the cubicle area, this man approached me. He was this kind of overweight, short guy with stubby hair. And we sat down one-on-one. And he went through my resume, and he goes, so why do you want to be a C# engineer? Why would you want to do that? And I said, well, I chose C# as my option. You always have to choose an option and go with it and never move away from that. And he said, well, that's really stupid. You need to be a Java developer because that's where it's at right now. You should be a Java developer. And I said, I don't care. I don't care what you say. I have learned C#. My focus is on C#, and I'm not changing that. And he said, okay. And I got up and I left. And then 6 months later, I got this phone call from the same staffing agency. Same, exact same, but not the same recruiter. I suspect that recruiter probably didn't work there anymore. And this recruiter said, yeah, I have this resume, and it looks like you maybe have done something with C#. You're kind of new with it. Are you on the job market? And I'm like, yeah, I'm currently looking for a position. And they're like, okay, well, I have a client. It's kind of weird, but they want somebody who's new at software development. And I said, well, I'm pretty new at software development. And they're like, okay, could you come in for an interview? And I said, sure. I walked in. I drove an hour, and I walked in, and I met with the hiring manager. It was the client's hiring manager, and we interviewed, and we talked. I didn't care if he hired me or not, because again, at this point, I had become the person who understood that if you go in desperate, you'll never get hired. So I just told him whatever I thought. I said, well, I talked about my experience in IT asset management. I talked about my experience as an unpaid intern doing web development, basically just web development, updating HTML code. But it looked good on a resume. I spent my time doing that. I didn't care. I try not to act nervous. And I got hired. And it eventually resulted in a full-time employment, resulted in being able to finally be able to pay my bills. And I've been in that situation ever since. And again, it stems back from that moment where I had to make the decision. Do I keep going or do I push forward? Say yes or no. Those are your two options, yes or no. It's always yes or no. Those are always your two options. And then it moves back even further to when I was 35, when I said, am I going to continue as I am? Yes or no? Yes or no? Am I going to go pursue a degree, a career in software development? Yes or no? And back when I was 32, when I told myself, no, I'm too old. What a dumb decision that was. And I see this. We feel like we're old. We feel like there's nothing else we could do in life. And I know I have made one specific video where I said, don't go to college after age 40. I actually still agree with that. At this side of things, at this point in my life, I'm on the downside. I'm telling you, when you get your college degree, you better get it earlier in life. Because the later you take to get your college degree, the less valuable it can be. You get it. If you were to get an accounting degree right now at the age of 40, you wouldn't make any money. You wouldn't make any. You wouldn't break $50,000 until you're 45 years old. You could have been doing that prior without a college degree. It might take you 10 years from the moment when you start a college journey. 10 years before you ever start making any money. And by making money, I mean making an income to pay for your bills. Just to differentiate, making money is when you make enough money to be wealthy. No. I'm talking about paying bills. And so again, I run into this where people say, I'm too young, I'm too old, my life is over. Your life is only over when you're 6 feet in the ground. You have two choices. You can say yes, or you could say no. That's it for today. I'm SP Graham. This is JobFerno. If you have any questions, send me an email at questions@jobferno.com. And as always, choose skills over money.